Hello, Michael.
Hi, Josh.
Thank
How
you.
are you?
I'm really enjoying this immersive piece of yours.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure.
Thank you for joining us on SoundMind. Well, it's wonderful that your sound experiments have taken this turn into singing bowls, uh, because maybe it's important for our audience to know. Uh, it's important for our audiences to know that in a recent lifetime, you were a gig musician and a busker, but now you've been reborn into this world of sound. Uh, what has led you there, and how are you
Yeah,
finding your way through it?
yeah. So my musical past is pretty eclectic and diverse. So I used to play at a local area bar right near me pre-COVID, and we play a bunch of cover songs. And even now that we do a little bit on the street as well post-COVID. But when things kind of closed down, rather than playing these songs that have a substantial beat to them, I play everything from Charlie Parker, believe it or not, to Metallica to the Grateful Dead, because I think all music has its purpose and its place. And as I play these different genres of music, I would notice, what is this music doing to me at different points in time, and what is it also doing to the people that are listening if I'm playing it well? Because music is, to quote Nietzsche, it's kind of like a Dionysian experience. It's what can bring you out. What can bring a collective together. It's what can get a room in the same vibe. And as COVID happened, there was not that ability to share music with others. And so I began to think about some of the scales that I really liked in some different forms of music. And I really got interested in Indian classical music and Arabic classical music, particularly Munir Bashir. And I got interested in some of these scales. And I had been to Morocco, and I saw Nawa players playing the sitar and different things. And so I began exploring that. And when COVID came, as I was listening to the drones that happen in Indian classical and Arabic classical music, I thought to myself, why not use a singing bowl as a drone? Take a very deep singing bowl and explore the resonance on that singing bowl. What is it? What's that primal tonal color? Where is it? So specifically for this piece that I put together, given that the theme was impermanence for this, I figured I would take an old Gregorian chant, which I believe was called the Deus Aria, which in Latin times, in medieval times, they played it. It was like the Grim Reaper was coming. And so that tune, the melodic tune, comes from that Gregorian chant. And then I wanted to take a couple chord structures on top of it and sort of just explore that almost in a meditative way. And so as just now, as I listen to the piece again, it's very much like my own meditation practice, which is I start off very self-conscious, very judgmental, trying to force something. And then eventually it's that surrender to you trying to be in the moment and to be present with what the moment is. And then it gets going. So really what it is it's a loose structure in and around that Gregorian chant, in following the tonal colors, and then kind of a meditative experience for me to see what works in terms of that experience of time dilation, or really being present.
Can you speak to how the overtones, the tonal colors, uh, either impact your improvisation or provide you some kind of pathway through the sound that you're creating, the composition?
Yeah, well, the beautiful thing about instruments, or I call it the wisdom of non-Western traditions, in particular, is in their appreciation of sound and in their crafting of instruments to utilize sound. Um, so specifically, this tuning bowl is tuned either to E or B. And what's really interesting in that are the microtones off of those structures, and finding a little flourishes in between. So there's a core structure to the singing bowl, but then there are little flourishes that take you to different places, and so it's really trying to explore that. And one of the things about the singing bowl, the other thing is to try and move away from a rhythmic structure altogether. So there's a rhythmic structure in the beginning and the end, but in the middle, I'm trying to move away from that, and it's more towards how is it that I can kind of access the parasympathetic nervous system. How is it that you can get into that place where the heart, where it's a physiological thing, right? Music is a very physiological experience if done right. And how is it that I can modulate my own physiological experience of the music so that I feel connected to it, my heart rate goes down, I become much more present, and trying not to focus on what the notes are, but hear the notes in my head and let my fingers express those as it goes through.
Are you also listening for silences, for instance, or kind of holes in the sound?
Yeah, I think that's one of the hardest parts for me is when I was initially trying to do it, I'm so used to, for example, like when I'm doing the busking stuff, I'll play Metallica, right? Or I'll play Sweet Child of Mine from Guns N' Roses, and I'm trying to play as many notes as possible, and have this faux virtuosity that I can like play through. And the hardest thing was to just to understand the difference between embellishing a primal tone and having the ego want to virtuosically rip through a scale so that I can show off for myself in it. And candidly, it took a long time before I could just try and be with the sound of the overtones and not feel the need to try and rip through scales or rip through something that sounded and there was a projection of what virtuosity was for me, and rather try and be with what the singing bowl was. And to me, what I'm trying to do is explore what the singing bowl is within the context of my appreciation for traditions that have gotten to that meditative state that can produce kind of that calming hypnagogic effect in music that I find in Arabic classical music and in Indian classical music in particular. So it's kind of paying homage to those traditions. And like you said, being with the silence, right? Being with the silence and allowing for those pauses and trying to restrain the drive to shoot through.
Yeah, it sounds like in the Western modalities, there's a lot of doing, there's a lot of playing, and there's a lot of receiving in these other modalities where things are happening to us.
Yes.
We're letting the sound be received instead. So it sounds like a powerful kind of shift to explore. You find that it's rooted in the design of the instrumentation as well. It sounds.
Yeah, I mean, there's
Physical.
yeah, to put a false binary on a more complicated thing, it's the binary between being and doing, right? And in the West, or at least I don't want to generalize the West, but to me, when I'm playing and I'm doing gigging and stuff, that one of the hardest things for me is space. So even in jazz music, right, the space is what makes the jazz music. The space is what makes that sound. There's the contrast with it, and that's the part of being. And utilizing sound, utilizing the notes towards a purpose rather than trying to show off a flourish of the ego. And the space and the sound is that being, right? And is that duality between being and doing.
Yeah. Within that, there are all these other dynamics, though, of the playing, which for me is interesting in your practice and where it's taking you. In that you are playing to activate your own relief or kind of calming effect. Do you find that the playing of it has shifted your being in this way?
Absolutely. When COVID, we all have our different ways of dealing with stress. And when COVID came, I got really interested in how I could use music to modulate my consciousness, and modulate my sense of being and my realities. Um, And when COVID came, I, gave up all alcohol and everything else, and I became just totally focused on sound and actually following my breath and meditation as a way of being with a whole changing set of experiences, whether it was professionally, whether it was with my kids, whether it was with everything else. The whole world shifted like that. And all of these different emotions were coming up through me, and as a processing mechanism, I wanted to be with them. It was a mind shift, like, how is it that I can be with these, understand these, process these, use these in different ways? And utilizing sound and utilizing, other artists and listening to other artists and seeing about it and exploring it myself was just a way to take this, impermanent energy that COVID has brought about to us, right? And try and transmute it into some greater understanding of these various different things, and ultimately greater agency. And how is it that I can, simple things like going to sleep, utilizing sound as a means to come down, to go to sleep. So it was really just an exploration of other wisdom and other, other cultures, and how they've utilized sound and that sound technology to enhance their lives and increase their potential.
Yes, you've got me wondering about the aspects of sound that also involve uh, instability and decay, as well as the arising aspects, which you're talking about, kind of embodying and abiding by. So,
Yeah.
how do you deal or discover the aspects of walking away or being away from sound, or engaging with everyday sounds rather than uh, musical creative sounds?
That's a great question. In terms of these instruments, what's amazing about them is if you look at the resonance of them, they're beautiful intervals of sound. That's why they're there. But they also decay and they go away, right? It's the beauty of life and the harmony of life combined with the decay of it over time,
Mm.
which is what makes them so powerful. And I think the challenge for all of us, or maybe for me in particular, is how are you present with everything, whether you're with a singing bowl or a guitar or not, like just walking down the street, right? Because at the end of the day, consciousness is the present is a mysterious, mystical experience that if we can be present with it each and every moment, it has its own mystery to it. And these instruments help elicit that feeling inside of us, help train us in a certain way, help explore us that way. But ultimately, it's that experience of being present with this amazing gift that we have, which is life right now, to be present with life. And so for me to play with these instruments, to understand that, to go through a modulating, sensory experiences, kind of helps me be more present and less in mental loops. Like when I start the piece initially, I'm like, all right, in my head, I want to get this. Here are the chords that I want. Here's the structure that I want, and I'm thinking. It's like, all right, now let's get into this. And then I try and lose myself in it, and ultimately, in that, I did. And that's very much like the archetype of the daily existence, I think.
Mhm. Absolutely. So, in a way, it sounds like your sound explorations are tuning yourself so that
Ab-
you emerge more present, more available, more aware, more
yeah,
sensitive, more
e-
receptive.
exactly right. I mean, our time on this planet is finite, but our enjoyment of each and every moment's not. Right, so it really is about, and the last thing that we want to be doing is stuck in repetitive mental loops, right? We can create a mental loop, and there's so much stimulation out there, particularly if you look at technology, you look at the election. Everyone is trying to grab our attention, and they're trying to grab our attention, and they're trying to throw us into a mental loop, which is serving someone else's economic means along the way. And how is it that we stay present with this beautiful, mysterious thing that we call life and consciousness that we get to experience, and not be locked into somebody else's loop? And, playing these instruments and being with these instruments helps in that daily practice, whether it's being present with my wife, being present with my children, being present with friends, being present with you right now. and really having agency and control over consciousness. And this little bit of time that we've got.
Yes, so sound is a very powerful technology for stepping through that, stepping out of the loops. Well, thank
It
you
is.
so much, Michael,
Thank you.
for speaking. Thanks for joining us. We've got more loops to dive into now on Sound Mind. So we'll look forward to having you with us again, Michael. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you guys playing it. Thank you so much, Josh.